Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about, remember that Rey movie, that Rey Skywalker movie? Yeah, we're going to talk about that because now we have yet another writer on this doomed Star Wars movie. It seems very doomed.
It's a trilogy, I guess.
Good luck with it. Good luck with that. Yeah, so was Ryan Johnson. So was what Taika Waititi was going to do a movie. So was, I'll believe it when I see it.
I have a list of people actually who they said were going to do stuff, and then the creators that got screwed.
We're going to talk about this because, there's another writer on this movie. So things are not going very well. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the utter state of Star Wars. Again, I don't even know what to say at this point. Like, Star Wars as a franchise is deader than dead for the general public. This doesn't
help. This kind of stuff does not help.
No, because every time there's some behind the scenes drama or every time there's a creative change or whatever, it hits the press and people are like, oh yeah, Star Wars is really screwed. You know, it's like you should just work on the stuff internally, maybe not announce it until you're actually filming the shit. I mean, that might help. Right. You just kind of hold your horses a little bit. But yeah, we've had so many projects announced and then canceled, and a lot of it I think is Kathleen Kennedy. I think
I was gonna say, how's she still there?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I think either somebody's afraid of her or there's something in her contract. I have no idea. But she supposedly was gonna get gone 5, 6, 8 years ago, and she's still there, and she'll probably be there until she decides she wants to leave, and then she'll probably put some protege in charge that'll just carry on business as usual. But I mean, we got to realize Star Wars as a pop culture icon, as something that is incredibly relevant to pop culture, it's not there anymore, and I don't think it's ever going to be there. I think that we have an entire generation of kids who don't care because the Star Wars they've been given is not that great. It doesn't resonate with them, and they try to get the kids back too late with Skeleton Crew and stuff, and it's just not working. And they've alienated the old audiences. It's kind of like comics where they chase this new audience, and in the process, not only did they not get the new audience, but they chased off the old fans too.
Well, no, they did get her insufferable, so they're not the ones they probably wanted anyway.
And then they chased off the old fans, right? We see this time and time again, Star Wars and Star Trek and Dungeons and Dragons and comic books. And it's, you get these new fans in, and that's what they wanted because they're like, oh, we need younger people. And they get them in, and then they're insufferable. And then they go to war with the old fans. They gatekeep. And then the old fans are like, fine, screw it. I don't need this anymore.
Well, and the celebrities too that are involved on the same thing. So so let's talk about the magical, mythical Rey movie that may or may not someday appear in a movie theater, possibly, maybe. And I don't think anybody's going to care by the time it does, because I think it's completely irrelevant at this point. They're even talking about bringing back Padme, for God's sake, to try to for Ahsoka.
Yeah. Why? If I'm sorry, if Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor couldn't get people excited enough to come back to Star Wars, Natalie Portman's not going to get them excited.
It wasn't even them that tanked Obi-Wan. I think it was the fact they made it about little Leia.
And all the drama,
Reva and all that stuff.
All the drama around that, and so let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about this. And I'm so sick. I gotta tell you, I am sick in death of talking about Star Wars. I don't care anymore. It is so dead to me. The franchise is so dead to me that it's kind of a nuisance to have to do Star Wars videos.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, I never thought I would be in that place ever. Like, at first I was very upset, and then I was kind of cautiously optimistic. I thought, well, maybe the Mandalorian, they're going to turn around. Maybe we'll get some good. No, I just don't. I am just so checked out. I'm like, the idea of even sitting through any Star Wars at this point, I'm just like, I can't do it. Like, I would literally rather sit through anything else.
Well, I don't think Mark Hamill has helped people.
He has not helped
classic trilogy either, but
No, I can't even watch the original trilogy because all I can see now is Mark Hamill. Think about that. Think about Lucasfilm. I think about all the drama around Star Wars over the last couple of years. Like, the brand damage goes beyond the product itself. It's also the people around the product and how you feel about it. That's the thing. It's very important to a brand, right? How does this brand make you feel? And exhausted. Star Wars, Disney Star Wars makes me feel exhausted and shitty and depressed. And that's not a good thing. I don't want to spend my money on something that makes me feel exhausted, shitty, and depressed. So
that's how I've been coming across like Marvel and stuff too. I think, okay, maybe I'll watch this one because I haven't seen it yet. And then by the time I get to it, I just like, no, I'm okay if I don't watch it.
Yeah. And all it took was all it took for us was to break the habit was, we're not going to go see The Rise of Skywalker opening night. That's the first time since we were together that we didn't go see a new Star Wars something opening night. And at first it's kind of like, well, I'm kind of curious. And after the first week or two, I started hearing stuff. I'm like, you know what? I can completely live without this. And then it got really easy. It's like, wow, I can just completely live without Star Wars completely. I don't need Star Wars, even though it was a huge part of our lives.
The FOMO is dead.
The FOMO is dead. And once you break that habit, it's just like, you know what? I don't need now I got to get in the habit of actually reminding myself that Star Wars on some level still exists, I guess. And to think, oh yeah, that new Star Wars show is coming out. Whatever.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd be there.
Don't kill the FOMO. Anyway. So they have a new writer again. Yeah. If you scroll up here, I'll show you. So yeah. Okay. They have a new writer for the Rey Trilogy. It's George Nolfi. He did the Ocean's 12 and the Bourne Ultimatum. Apparently, he has been hired to write the new Daisy Ridley Rey films.
Because that's the first person get the guy that did the Bourne Ultimatum to do
Ocean's 12.
And Ocean's 12.
Yeah. So I'm so it started out with Damon Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson. And then they got that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy in there as a director. So then they were both gone. And Lindelof said that he was kicked out of it. He said flat out that that's what happened. So then scroll up again. I have to go through the list of who was hired when. So then after that, they said that they were bringing the Stephen Knight in and he was going to work on it. And he was there. He's the Peaky Blinders guy. He was there until last October. And then they got rid of him. And then they announced that they're having the Simon Kinberg come in. Now, to be fair, Simon Kinberg might be working on something else. They assumed it might have been the Rey movies, but they said it could be something else because he's working directly with Kathleen Kennedy. So that might not be the same Rey movie, but at least there's been at least 3, maybe 4 writers on this before they hired this George Nolfi in there. And this is the third or fourth writer being brought in.
I don't see it happening. I think so. This is my opinion. On what I think is happening. What I think is happening is the suits at Disney are the most bankable Star Wars we have, the only bankable Star Wars we have or had the entire time that we've had Star Wars is The Mandalorian. Let's put that movie out there first and let's see how it does. And then we'll decide if we're going to do more movies or not. Because every series has been failure after failure, declining audience after declining audience.
Well, the only one that we have coming out for sure is the Mandalorian Grogu, which is May of next year. That's the only one we know for sure is coming out. Everything else hasn't been. Now, we keep seeing this over and over again, not just with creators that are attached to write or, make something, but with people that were movies that have been announced and different things like that, they just disappear. I have a whole list. So far, reportedly, we've had Michael Arndt, Gary Whitta, Gareth Edwards, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, Colin Trevorrow, Josh Trank, James Mangold, Stephen Daldry, David Benioff, and D.B. Weiss. Stephen, is it Schiff? It's hard to read on my screen. J.D. Dillard, Matt Owen, Stuart Beatty, Hosina Mini, Damon Lindelof, Justin Britt Gibson, Stephen Knight, Simon Kinberg, Michael Feige, Michael Waldron, and possibly Patty Jenkins, who have gone.
So half of Hollywood, basically.
Yeah, they've
half of Hollywood. She's hired and fired half of Hollywood.
Creative differences, quote unquote. And if it's not her, it's somebody else at Lucasfilm. But why is there so many damn creative differences?
That's the thing. What's the common denominator?
Exactly.
Kathleen Kennedy has been in charge since day one. And look, I want to remind people, Kathleen Kennedy was hired by George Lucas.
That's true.
Kathleen Kennedy was people keep thinking, this is Iger put Kathleen. No, Kathleen Kennedy was hired by George Lucas. Now, I don't know what the language of her contract looks like. It might be that George was like, well, you can't fire her until she wants to leave on her own or something. I don't know.
Has something on somebody somewhere.
That's very possible too. Yeah, I don't know. But I've never seen a bigger shit show in Hollywood where they can just keep producing underperforming movies after underperforming movies. I mean, we've seen other divisions of Disney where people have gone for less
Yeah.
Right. You have one or two misfires. Pixar, they had the one lady that was, which movie was she in charge of? She was
Lightyear, I think.
It was Lightyear. That's right. Yeah. So it's hard to keep track because they all failed. Most of the Pixar movies has failed. Yeah. She was in charge of Lightyear, and she'd been with Pixar for like 25, 30 years. She was actually the one who saved Toy Story 2 because she had a copy at home because she was home on maternity leave. And they didn't care. You had a failure, you're out the door, right?
Yeah, but, I mean, when you say Pixar's been failing, you meant recently until Inside Out 2, not in general. Yeah. They had a lot of really good movies, and then they kind of just lost their way, and they're starting to pick back up again. But I'm even looking at some of the stuff coming out from Disney, like the Elio and stuff, and I'm just not seeing it do well. I could be wrong, but what I've seen of it, I'm not seeing it do well. I just don't get this when it comes to Star Wars. Like, yeah, and then Skeleton Crew's ratings were franchise low. I think a lot of it had to do with, one, it seemed more like Goonies than Star Wars, and two, people were, after the Acolyte, were checked out.
Yeah, so this is why, again, this back to what I was saying. Like, what I don't understand is how can you have every sequel trilogy movie, even the sequel trilogy was the high point for Disney of their acquisition of Star Wars. Every movie underperformed. Every movie made less than the previous movie, right? They should have been going up, but they went down. And by the time we got to The Rise of Skywalker, I think it struggled to break $1 billion, whereas The Force Awakens made like $2 billion. And then we got to The Last Jedi. A lot of people were super excited for The Last Jedi. They went to go see it. It broke the fandom. Then Solo came out, and that was actually a flop. And Rogue One did okay. It wasn't gangbusters, but it was a spinoff, right? So it wasn't like, I don't think people were expecting it to be the biggest thing ever. But and then we had one little glimmer of success with The Mandalorian, the first 2 seasons, and people were like, okay, that's it. Star Wars is back. This is the future of Star Wars. It's going to be on TV, but that's okay. It's pretty good Star Wars. And then they screwed that up too. And then every series has been on the decline, every single one.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, the last couple have been not, I mean, I didn't get to watch all Skeleton Crew. What I saw of it was pretty good. I haven't got to watch the rest of it. But I know it did not do well, and neither did the Acolyte. And it did worse than the Acolyte. I think it's people just gave up on it. They're just like, don't care. This isn't Star Wars anymore.
People have given up on it completely. And even like I looked at Skeleton Crew, and again, having not watched it because I forgot it existed, frankly, this looks like something that George Lucas would have done. Right. And even bringing back Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, that didn't work. Boba Fett, you ruined Boba Fett. How the hell do you make Boba Fett boring?
They found a way.
They found a way to do it.
Even the actor, even Tamara Morrison said, he's talking too much. This is not Boba Fett. And they're like, shut up and do your lines.
He had like 3 lines in the original trilogy, right? And it's like, he shouldn't talk at all. It should just be Boba Fett with the helmet on most of the time, doing badass stuff. That's, and we saw a little bit of that in The Mandalorian. Actually, when they brought him back, it was pretty cool, I thought. But then it was all like, oh, okay, now we got to have a kinder, gentler Boba Fett, and we can't have Slave One because that's offensive. And we can't. It's like, shut the hell up. Just, you know what I'm saying? Like, you lost the plot. Like, at this point, I don't think there is any saving Star Wars. I'm going to be honest. I don't think there is.
I don't know how they could from where they're at now.
I'm not even angry about it. I'm just like, so I've been thinking a lot about this because there are certain periods in time where something is super important to pop culture or to the zeitgeist, and then its time comes and goes. And we had Westerns, and then we had the Buck Rogers era of the pulp magazines and stuff like that, and we had cheesy B movies, science fiction type movies, and all these things cycled. Musicals, I think, cycled. And I think just Star Wars, that era of entertainment, because it was actually kind of counterculture when it came out. It was like, wow, this is something new and fresh and exciting coming from these young people making these really cool movies. And now it's old and stale and corporate, and the exact opposite of what was supposed to be. And it's not cool anymore.
Yeah, Disney did it. It's by committee, and you can tell.
Yeah. And they don't have it. You're never going to be George Lucas. This stuff came out of the mind of George Lucas, just like a lot of stuff came out of the mind of Steven Spielberg. And you can't do it. But I think at this point, even if they brought George Lucas back, I don't think anybody would care. I mean, that's a horrible thing to say, but I think if they brought George back to save Star Wars, I think the damage is done. I don't think it can be saved.
Yeah.
I mean,
people were mad at George Lucas before he sold it to Disney, which is why he sold it to Disney.
That's why he sold it. That's why he sold it. And if George came back current year, George Lucas would give us something like Skeleton Crew. He would.
He probably would have, yes.
And if these shows came out, Skeleton Crew came out first, or even Obi-Wan, if it came out before Boba Fett, things might have been different. But it just like the damage is done. The people there, that doesn't help because it's very clear there's a large portion of Star Wars fans that are despised by the people at Lucasfilm. So it makes it very hard to watch or consume their content when they hate you. When Mark Hamill hates you, and I hate to say that because everybody throws it around like these people hate you, but as we are finding out firsthand, there are people that work in the geek spheres that literally hate you. Will tell you that they hate you, but they want your money.
Yeah. Right.
But they actually do hate you for whatever reason, and it's sad. It's over. I think I could be wrong. Maybe 10 years from now, Star Wars will see a resurgence, but I think it's kind of like Westerns. I think it's kind of over, and we always have the memories, right? We have the memories of being kids in the 70s and 80s and loving Star Wars, but I don't think it's coming back. I don't. Are we gonna wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent there, but please subscribe.
Have Bespin.
We'll always have Bespin. I know. please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.